Coming up on All About Android, it's me, Jason Howell, with my co-hosts Ron Richards and Florence Ion. We've got the OnePlus 9 and 9 Pro devices that were announced this morning, but I've been using the 9 Pro for about a week and a half, so I'm going to give you all of my thoughts on that and the Hasselblad partnership for the camera. We also talk about the OnePlus watch that was announced today. We've got Android 12 Developer Preview 2 and all the features there. Why phones have been crashing left and right and what WebView had to do with it. There is a fix, by the way. The Aurora Store, which is an open source version of the Play Store, plus your email and a whole lot more next on All About Android.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust. This is TWiT.
This episode of All About Android is brought to you by Hover. Whether you're a developer, photographer, or small business, Hover has something for you to expand your projects and get the visibility you want. Go to hover.com/twit to get 10% off your first purchase of any domain extension for the entire first year. And by Sandisk's data storage solutions. Check out their Ultra Dual Drive Lux today, and you'll get 15% off your first order of the featured Sandisk products found at sandisk.com/AAA. Hello and welcome to All About Android, episode 517, recorded Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021. Your weekly source for the latest news, hardware, and apps for the Android faithful. I'm Jason Howell.
And I'm Ron Richards.
Hi, guys. I'm Florence Ion.
Hello,
Hey.
hello.
What
And
up?
hi. Good to see you both.
The highs and
officially
lows
spring, by the way.
of the world of Android.
That's
Mhm.
right.
It's
Each
officially
and every
spring in the
week.
world of Android.
This
Yeah,
week
that's
is filled with highs and lows.
Yeah, that's like Android in a nutshell, filled with highs and lows.
The highs and
And
lows
pollen.
of Android.
That's Android
and itchy
platform.
pollen.
It's good to see you both. We had a lot of fun in our pre-show talking about nonsense and reality TV, which is what we often do. So, when you have a chance, twit.tv/live before we record on Tuesday nights, usually around 5 p.m. Pacific, and you can participate in our discussions about the real world and 90210 and how 90210 is not a thing anymore.
Oh, my gosh,
and
Jason.
so many
Wow.
other things that you
I've got
have
deja
to.
vu all of a sudden.
I do feel like
recap.
Jason really took all that information in. So,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm writing a book.
for-
I'm writing a book about things that we talk about in pre-show, so I got to keep it all up there.
I love
We have a
the
lot-
idea of Jason secretly writing a book about co-hosting a show with two maniacs like me and Flo. So,
I mean, yeah, it would just be us like yapping pop culture at each other back and forth, and Jason's observations of that, which
You-
could be very interesting.
You ever notice how silent I am through some of those
Yeah.
conversations? It's
I
because
have,
I'm taking notes. I'm jotting it all
that's what
down.
it is. That's what it is. Yeah.
I'm taking notes too.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's even scarier. Is
Yeah, it
when
is.
Burke's over there taking notes. You don't know what's going on. We have a lot to talk about that actually
do.
has something to do with Android, because this has been a big week for Android. So why don't we jump into it? Burke, stop taking notes, put down the notepad, and take us into the news.
I'll try.
Okay.
This is your technical director. Preview soon in beta. The Android news.
All
That
right.
was interesting. I
All right,
liked that. That was
I
And then
wouldn't
I
say he
forgot to
phoned.
do the
I wouldn't
bump.
say he phoned it in, but he got it done. So there you go.
yeah.
So big news. The Android 12 train just keeps on rolling. You can't get a moment's rest with Android 12 because the Android 12 Developer Preview 2 has landed. And it's chock full of goodies. So here we go. Developer Preview 2 contains a more developed version of the new People Space widget for frequent contacts, a game dashboard for quickly recording and streaming gameplay on device. All you gamers out there, gamers with a Z. Finally, a redesigned widgets list. I was just thinking about this the
For
other
all
day
those widgets.
as I added a widget to my home screen. I'm like, God, this list is awful. So glad they redesigned that. And the much discussed ballyhooed one-handed mode is now live in this preview. So that's a good rundown of the major things you can play with DP2. But hidden in the developer preview too, but so not accessible, but possibly coming. Pixel getting a device search widget for apps, people, settings, etc. Face-based auto rotation, which gives me a headache even saying, and a redesigned pin entry with large bubbly buttons. So if you've been hoping that the pin entry screen would get redesigned, this developer preview has got your name written all over it. And finally, the good folks over at XDA found some code that hints at an under-display fingerprint sensor coming to a future Pixel device. So lots to unpack here. Jason, have you installed this yet on your device?
I haven't. I did because this time around I'm not doing what I usually do, which is just throw caution to the wind and just install it on my daily driver and just be like, whatever, if it breaks, who cares? I didn't do that this time around. I put it on an extra device. And what can I say? I was busy. I ended up getting, busying myself too much. So I didn't get it installed. I honestly don't think that I'm missing a whole lot, to be honest. There's not a whole lot here that I'm like crazy excited to like check out firsthand. Like the only thing that I think immediately I'd be pretty happy with would be the redesigned pin entry with the large bubbly buttons. I don't know. I've actually found myself many times in the past thinking that needs to be redesigned, that it's too small, unnecessarily small for how often we use it. Those buttons are always so much smaller than they need to be. So that actually, it seems inconsequential and kind of low on the priority list, but I'm kind of looking forward to that. But no, that's my long-winded way of saying I have not installed it. I really need to do that, though.
What about these? Are any of these hidden features ones that you would bet aren't going to make it to launch or to final?
I mean, they don't seem too far out there as far as, features that are like, what was it? The scoped storage feature that came and then went, that really, threw a giant wrench into developers' pathways with their apps. Like that, I could understand why it would suddenly disappear, but, face-based auto rotation.
I was going to say,
I would guess it's probably going to be in there.
Are you willing to go on record right now, Mr. Jason Howell, that you are for face-based auto rotation?
Sure, I'll try. I'll go on record and say that would be kind of neat. Although I don't know, I can't help but think that sounds more useful than it's actually going to be. Like there's going to be a situation where like I'm laying down and I don't want it to rotate, even though my face, it sees it a certain way, but you can probably turn it on and off. It sounds like you don't like the feature. You don't like the idea of it, Ron.
I have a hard time with auto rotation just in general. I find myself like every time I need to show something on my phone, it starts spinning like crazy and all that sort of stuff. And you just think about all those use cases that like whose face is it rotating for? And it's just going to be a nightmare. I'll probably turn it off, but we'll see. Right. Flo, what of these do you think are game changers, if any? Go.
I'm not ready to call anything a game changer just yet.
You have to.
I have to.
No, I'm just kidding. You don't have to.
I do agree with Ron that the widget search feature has just been, the other day I actually added some widgets to my home screen and I've been trying to kind of get a little organized around here. And so that was kind of nice. The thing that I do think about though is that one-handed mode, not necessarily because I think it's a game changer, but I keep thinking about when Google is adopting these features that we've seen in other versions of Android on other phones, what happens to those features, how they just slowly get withered away. I think about Samsung as an example. And Jason, I might need you to fact check me on this just because I haven't used a Samsung phone in a while, but I think they did away. I think they still have the Samsung browser. I think it was the Messages app that people were like, oh my gosh, finally it's Android Messages. Like they did it away with the Samsung Messages app. It's making me think about one-handed mode on like the OnePlus. What's going to happen to that? Is OnePlus going to try and make it better? So I choose their version, or is it just they're just going to let it kind of wither away with the versions and then just default to whatever Google pushes through. It's kind of what I'm stuck on.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times I'm trying to come up with an example to point to exactly, but I feel like with a lot of features kind of similar to this, I understand where you're headed with that. A lot of times what happens is Google will put the feature in there, but it isn't necessarily like you have to use it's our way or no way sort of thing. It's like, yeah, we've got our official way of supporting this particular thing, but if you want to do it your way, that's okay too. And I would imagine in that regard, because one-handed mode could be done so many different ways, right? Like there could be so many different solutions for making a device more friendly for using one hand. Google's solution might, as Google often does, might be the way that's the most popular because they've looked at how other OEMs are doing this by and large, and they seem to kind of adopt that, or maybe they go out on their own in a completely different direction. But I would be surprised if that happened. But I'd be very surprised if Google said, "No, our way is the only way that you can do it." No. And I'm sorry, you know what I mean. I think they're going to get. I think this is the default step down version of one-handed mode, and if you don't already have your own, you as a manufacturer or maker, you would opt for this. Otherwise, sure, go for the one that you have.
No, totally. Like I wasn't trying to imply that. I kind of, what I was sort of getting at, if the users don't like having all those different experiences on there, and then it becomes really muddled, they start complaining, and so the manufacturer's sort of forced. Confusing. The manufacturer's sort of forced to just like default to whatever it is that Google offers, because at the end of the day, I think that's more user friendly. And again, it's not specific to one-handed mode. It's just something that I'm thinking about. I'm not at the developer preview stage in my life right now because I am using a OnePlus phone. I'm using all these other manufacturers' phones. I'm not using the popular phones, I guess I should say. I mean, OnePlus is a popular phone, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Can I ask you guys a quick question?
It's not Samsung or a Pixel.
Right. Bert, what you got?
So this has really been bothering me. This is it just me, or does this look incredibly uncomfortable?
So Burke is showing our video viewers a diagram of what is it, one-handed mode, or
I'm not sure, but it looks really uncomfortable.
That looks like if I'm to read that diagram,
that's the fingerprint.
That's swipe down on fingerprint in order to show notifications. Which has been a feature for I don't know, a few years now. Which is actually when the fingerprint is on the back, it's actually kind of helpful. Although one of the things that you read here, Ron, is that the future Pixel device might not have that fingerprint sensor on the back, so you wouldn't have that motion anymore.
It would be under display, which I think is totally viable given all the under display ones we're seeing from other manufacturers. I would not be surprised to see that in a future Pixel. So.
Yeah, but I'd be kind of bummed about it, to be honest.
I liked it. When I had it on the OnePlus 8, which OnePlus had it? Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was great. It always worked for me. It had a very cool animation thing that happened around it. It always worked. I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it was great. Bring it on. So
bring it on.
I just like the hardware one a little bit better.
The ups and downs of Android.
Exactly. We might already have the title, actually. Yeah. There we go. Flo, you got the next one.
So this is another down of being on Android, is that sometimes things just kind of stop working and you don't really understand why. Today in particular had people complaining about their apps suddenly crashing just out of nowhere, unexpectedly, things just going kaput, bye-bye. So we're talking apps like Gmail, Yahoo Mail. Yes, people are still using Yahoo Mail. And other apps that were shutting down basically erratically. The bug was related to a bad update to the WebView system component, which, if you know the ins and outs of Android and the operating system, is a pretty big, significant part of it all. Now, many users removed the WebView update, and that actually helped temporarily fix their devices. So it's totally traceable to that. Google has since addressed the issue for all users when they update Android system WebView and Google Chrome. Many users, they were resetting their phones, which then made it unusable because of the bug. So lot of headaches from this little bug that came out today. Again, WebView, it's a component that embeds Chrome browser into apps that call for it. So we're talking about like when you hit on a shop to link and it takes you there. And so imagine you were doing that in Instagram and it was calling on maybe the Chrome WebView, and that's what probably was crashing. That's why people were experimenting, just random crashes.
Several things with this is that number one, this drove me nuts to see the coverage of this, of actually the fact that people were uninstalling the WebView component, and that was being encouraged by blogs, because that's completely irresponsible, because that WebView component is so hooked into so many other apps, it actually made people's phones even more unstable. Right, because this key piece of how the whole thing works wasn't working. But I get that it's frustrating and all stuff. In fact, that last night my sister texted me. So everyone knows I have my sister on the Pixel track, right? I think she's on a Pixel 3 right now. And she texted me. She's like, Gmail keeps crashing. So does Outlook. I can't use my mail. This is nuts. And it was like 9:45 last night. I was like, do you want me to come over and look at it? And she's like, no, I'll come over tomorrow. But it's really annoying. And I was like, all right. And so I'm like, did you turn it off and turn it back on? And she's like, yes. And and like I went through all that stuff, right? And then today I looked up and I saw this, and then saw that all you needed to do once Google did the update was update it, and it fixed it, and that's the solution, and and there was a bug that happens. But I just it really kind of irked me that for a less than 24 for a 12-hour period, some sites were advocating to do something that was actually more harmful than fixing. You know what I mean? And I get you need to check your email and all stuff like that, but in that situation, just it'll be fine. Go to a desktop. You'll get your mail. Like,
I wonder if that's because not a lot of people, or not a lot of those people who cover those sort of stories are Android users.
Possibly.
I'm subtweeting. I am.
I feel like, I don't know. One very specific Android site in their headline said to uninstall it. So
okay, well then that changes things. But that I was just considering that as maybe a factor.
That's fair. Yeah.
Well, and people will go to great lengths to do whatever it takes to get their phone back. Chumley in chat is, mentioned you couldn't even use the phone without the continuous pop-ups. And when a device is doing that, like at that point, like that's why a lot of people were actually wiping their phone and starting fresh again, because they're like, my phone is completely broken. Is it a virus or something,
Was the continuous pop-ups happening because they uninstalled the WebView?
Well, I don't know. That's a good question.
Probably.
So I think probably, because like my sister, all that was happening, and I did it. I looked at it, was you tapped Gmail, it opened for a second, and then closed. That's all that was happening. Same thing was happening in Outlook. She could still use the rest of the phone and everything. I never she didn't know what to do. I didn't uninstall WebView. I just updated it once the update was there. This is like about 5 o'clock Eastern time. So it's probably like you did more damage to your phone than you needed to. So
maybe, but if your phone is 100% unusable, there's not a whole lot more damage you could do. I'm sure that's a good point. I'm not trying to like be the devil's advocate here. I just think that when your phone is crashing so much that you can't even make a call on it, or you know what I mean, when it's interfering with the very like core of what you need a phone to be, you get desperate. I know I've been in that situation. I'd be like, okay, give me a solution, something that's going to ease the pain.
It reminds me of like in the old PC days when you're just like, what is config.sys? I don't need that. Delete. And then the computer doesn't work, right? Like it's like, so it's
it works. It suddenly works. Yeah. What else did you just do? Who the heck knows? You'll find out later. And you won't even have any idea what it is then. Yeah, totally. Nonetheless, I did not experience this, so I cannot speak to any, personal degree about the pain that it inflicted upon me. But it sounds like people were pretty upset, and I would understand. That would really suck. Yep. Finally, Samsung. We've talked on the show in the past that recently, anyways, especially with the S21 series and the Ultra getting the S Pen, that there were rumors and murmurings that Samsung was possibly going to be doing away with the Note, or at least not releasing a Note this year. Samsung has stated officially that the chip shortage could mean no Note released this year. They said this in a call to shareholders. They said that they do intend to release a Note phone, a Note device next year, or at least they mentioned that in that same call. Though, like I said, they already brought the S Pen to the S21 Ultra. That was part of their commitment, and they mentioned this. I can't remember how long ago, to quote, bring some of the most beloved features of the Galaxy Note to more device categories in 2021. So it's really taking the secret sauce of the Note and spreading it into other devices. Why would Samsung want to do that? Well, they have this other flagship category. And what it's starting to look like is Samsung suddenly found itself in a position where it has the S20 series, or the S series of flagships, and then it has the Note series of flagships, and then now it has the foldable series of flagships. So suddenly they have 3 flagship families. And Samsung's going, okay, maybe this is too many flagships to release in a given year and give consumers something to focus on when they want our top tier devices. From that angle, it makes a whole lot of sense for the Note series features to roll into the S series, and then the foldable devices to be the other flagship area for them to focus on the latter part of the year. And that kind of seems where we're going. The Nikkei Asia reported that Samsung is planning on increasing its production of its folding lineup and making that its kind of other focus. So
I don't want to say I called it. I don't want to say, but on this show several years ago, I said foldables are going to change everything, and it just took a little. It's taking a little longer than I initially hoped for.
Yeah.
But it appears as if Samsung is on the foldable train. So
yeah, oh yeah, heck yeah. Well, and they've been doing foldables really well. Like they've done a really great job with their foldable approach, and their devices are desirable. And you have to imagine if Samsung puts its efforts behind foldables the way it did with the Note series and everything, in a couple of years, these foldables are going to be way more interesting than they are even right now. It gives them an avenue to explore that is kind of counter to this thing that's been bubbling up the last 3, 4, 5 years, where it's like, okay, the industry is stagnant. There's nothing really that exciting about smartphones anymore. Now Samsung's like, oh, well, we have the exciting thing. It's the foldables. We do it well. Let's see what happens when we put all of our attention in there. And 2 or 3 years down the line, we continue to be kind of the industry leader in that, and then some. And that seems to be what they're focusing on.
This is a huge marketing ploy, and it's going to work really well in their favor. Did you check their stock, by the way? Like, did it go up when this announcement went out? Because I feel like people would be, their investors or whatever, would be really, really behind this to just try and see how far they can take this.
So when was this? This was last week, the 17th. This was
March 17th. So it was on St. Patty. I guess it would. Yeah, it would still be the 17th. Even
God, it looks like
the
Asian
stock exchange
down since then.
Oh well,
I mean,
whatever.
It may have gone up with the announcement and then came down.
Well, but there's too much in their business. There's too much in their business. Like something could happen in washing machines.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's a good
You're
point.
right. You're right. Yeah. Big washing machine. But regardless, it's great. It's great marketing, because even if they do the sales don't really take off, they can always say that they were the first ones to really bring it to the forefront. And from now on, every single Samsung keynote will start with Samsung, the global leader in foldables.
Yes. And
because of the technicalities of that marketing slogan. So really, it's a genius move.
Yes.
And I'd expect nothing less from the giant conglomerate that is
the giant S in the sky.
I mean, they could be their own country. That's how big they are.
I mean,
GDP, right?
I would love to visit Samsung Island. I think that would be a very interesting experience. Akin to the Super Mario World they're building in Japan, Universal Studios Japan.
You'd be like a card carrying, like you'd be an expat. You'd be like welcomed as a dual citizenship.
True.
U.S.
Yes,
and
I could
Samsung.
I could work overseas, akin to the Disney program. I could go.
It's actually funny though, because there's a cyberpunk sci-fi futurism novel which I'm sure has been written. I'm sure Cory Doctorow has done something like this or whatever. But that is where we no longer have countries or borders, but allegiances to corporations, and like we're one step closer to that when the pandemic hit and we didn't have baseball, and me and Tom Merritt and a whole bunch of other people we flocked to ESPN to watch the South Korea baseball league, only to discover that all the teams were not based in cities, they were based with companies. So there was the Samsung Tigers.
Who did you cheer for? Who did you cheer for, Ron?
I didn't watch nearly enough to align with any. Just every now and then you just want to see like an inning of baseball. I'm like, I'll just watch whoever. But it was fascinating to see that yes, they're not city based. They're corporate sponsor based or company based. So
interesting.
Yep. So we would be citizens of Google in that world. So except Flo would be a citizen of Samsung.
I'm sure here in California, I feel like we'd be citizens of Google. So they already own like.
I was gonna say you already are.
They already own part of San Jose. So
yeah.
And introducing from California, the Google Podcasters. That's us.
Well done. All right. So after that trip to a dystopian future, let's take a pause and thank our first sponsor of the episode. This episode of All About Android is brought to you by Hover. The new year holds a lot of promise. Make plans and let Hover help you achieve them. If you're a blogger, creating a portfolio, building an online store, or you just want to make a more memorable redirect to your LinkedIn page, Hover has the best domain names and email addresses just for you. Email at your domain name is key to connecting with customers and building trust for your brand. They have domain-based emails for all your needs, small or large. It's so easy to set up. You can add as many mailboxes to your domain as you need. When your domain renews, your mailboxes will too. And the prices are unbeatable. Their most popular mailbox is a no-brainer solution for business owners. Get access from anywhere. Use the email app you're already comfortable with. And if apps aren't your thing, their webmail client can be accessed wherever you are. And that is completely true. How many times have you seen a business? You get a business. Recently, I'm doing some home improvement around my house, and I got a bunch of quotes from different people. And I went with the guy who had a custom domain name on his email, not the guy who gave me a Gmail address. It just doesn't seem legit. And if you're a small business person, you want to seem legit because you are legit. And getting your own domain name, having your own email set up, that is key to doing business these days. I've set up tons of domains with different businesses. I've bought so many domains as jokes and things like that. The redirect trick is always the best when you want to come up with a funny domain and then redirect it to another website. And Hover is a great option to let you do that stuff. Hover is fantastic. But listen, Hover isn't here to upsell you on stuff you don't need. They just want to help. Amongst the things they offer, they have pro-level tools. They have powerful domain and email management tools that are intuitive and easy to use, whether you're a web pro or just getting started. Hover is private and secure. With Whois privacy protection included with your domain purchase, your private information will remain just that, private. It's a great way to reduce spam and protect yourself from unwanted solicitations. Hover Connect lets you pick the service you want to use to build and host your website. Connect helps you start using your domain name with just a couple of clicks. And at Hover, you're a customer, not a source of data. Take back control of your data with reliable, tracker-free email. Hover is trusted by hundreds of thousands of customers who use their domain names and email to turn their ideas into a reality. So whether you're a developer, a photographer, or a small business owner, Hover has something for you to expand your projects and get the visibility you want. Go to hover.com/twit to get 10% off your first purchase of any domain extension for the entire first year. That's hover.com/twit for 10% off your domain extension for a full year. And we thank Hover for their support and all their great tools. Thank you, Hover. Awesome.
Thank you, Hover. Get to hovering.
And now the exciting meat of the episode, the highs and lows, the ups and downs of Android continue with hardware.
Oh, yeah.
Can I just ask, why have we not monetized Jason's like husky, almost kind of like back when it was called WWE wrestler voice?
Who's to say that we haven't, Flo?
Yeah. I don't
I'm really putting Jason on the
those
spot
things,
today, by the
Flo.
way. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. You're outing me, and that's fine. No, I'm definitely sponsored for my husky voice. The World Wrestling is not the Federation anymore. No. I just blew it.
Yeah.
The World Wrestling Federation is not sponsoring me anymore. When that went away, they stopped their sponsorship of my husky voice. So
okay,
you're left with me doing it for free on this show. What can I say? Let's see here. So there was some big hardware news today. Maybe you heard of it. If you're fans of OnePlus, then you probably saw that the company held a live stream this morning. And then shortly after, the embargoes lifted and reviews were aplenty. The OnePlus 9 and the OnePlus 9 Pro. Wrong article. It's okay. OnePlus 9 and OnePlus 9 Pro announced this morning. That's because I didn't put an article in there, Burke, so you don't have to worry about it. Were announced this morning. You don't need to put an article in there because I have them. There they are.
Wow.
That's right.
Wow.
This right here is the OnePlus 9 in, I think they call it a matte black color, although it's not very matte.
I was going to ask, shiny. Did you keep the protector on there? Because it looks real shiny to me. It doesn't look matte at all.
No, it's not matte, actually. It's very, very shiny. In fact, both of these are very, very shiny. So that's the 9. And then a slightly larger 9 Pro, which is like super glass. You know what I mean? It's like you can use this as a mirror, basically. Okay. But it's got a little kind of like haziness up at the top that gets to completely clear down at the bottom. But
does it come in any other colors?
What's the other one is like do they call it an Arctic green or something like that? I can't remember the name of the third color, but it's kind of more similar to. Here, hold on. I think I have kind of more similar to the OnePlus 8 Pro. This I would call matte, right? Like this is kind of like a hazy, sort of not glassy, reflective thing. But
I'm just really disappointed by. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be hard to please, but I'm disappointed by the black and silver of it all. Like, what is this? Is this like some sort of ball where I'm supposed to like put on a fancy gown and only wear like black or silver? Where's the color?
I mean, you still have your color option.
The OnePlus 8 is vaporwave. Like, where is the vaporwave? Where is the beautiful teal back?
Sometimes they save these things for later. You know how OnePlus rolls. They come out with their colors and and then a little bit later they come out with their special edition, vaporwave edition.
It's not what they did last year. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying sometimes they do. But what you will notice with the OnePlus 9 and 9 Pro, if you look hard enough, and I don't know that I've got this on autofocus, so I'm just going to keep it right here. But basically this little branding in the camera bump, which says Hasselblad. Am I saying that right? Hasselblad.
Yes, Hasselblad.
And so basically OnePlus has a partnership with Hasselblad, the camera company that is highly respected, although we should definitely point out the fact that Hasselblad was also the big camera partnership that Motorola had for a Moto mod that did not actually take very good pictures. So the question was, once we started hearing kind of the news about OnePlus and Hasselblad having a partnership, is this a branding play or is the camera's hardware actually amazing here? Which, I mean, is definitely the focus. That really seems to be the focus this time around. The OnePlus 8, you may remember, at least the 8 Pro, it did well in improving and upping OnePlus's game when it came to the camera. And it looks like with the 9, they're looking to do the same thing here. I've had these phones for about a week and a half now, although I've only really used the 9 Pro with any regularity. I haven't lived with the OnePlus 9. Camera hardware is very similar between the two, but I've leaned into the camera on the 9 Pro. I'm actually doing a comparison for Hands on Tech that'll go live tomorrow between the shots on the 8 Pro and shots on the 9 Pro to kind of show you, did OnePlus actually upgrade here? But feel free and show some shots. Okay, stay on this one for a second because this one kind of bothers me. This is with the main rear-facing camera. And I don't know that anyone else would notice this because you don't know my daughter and my wife the way I do.
Right.
But their heads look stretched.
I totally noticed that, actually. It looks like your daughter is flat, like a cardboard cutout.
Ron noticed it too. And I didn't notice it.
Yep. And this was done with the main camera. This was not the wide angle lens. I'm used to seeing that kind of tearing, that smearing on wide angle shots, but not the main. And I realized what it is because this was like within the first couple of days of having the camera. I was like, okay, what is that? If all of my main shots are going to do this, it's going to bug the heck out of me. And I realized what it is. The main lens does not have optical image stabilization. And so if you are even moving your hand the slightest when you take these shots, you end up with really erratic image results.
I see.
And I see that as a big bummer because it actually did kind of rear its ugly head to me multiple times where I thought I was still, but I wasn't quite still enough. And then I looked at the shot later and I was like, okay, that's just a little too blurry for my liking. You actually end up getting better shots out of the wide than you do with the main.
What?
But yeah,
What?
yeah. I mean, considering that it's a wide, right? So you get that wide effect, but I just enjoy the shots from the wide more than I do the main and a lot of the shots that I took. It was very dark outside.
Gonna distort. That's frustrating because the person who uses that, it's going to distort the images they take that they want to. You said the wide angle has the optical image stabilization?
Yeah. The wide has the optical image stabilization, to my understanding. The main does not. And main absolutely does not. And so
what?
I got a blurriness on that. I don't understand that. Yeah. Maybe fact check that for me while I walk through a few of these other things here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know for a fact the main does not. I'm pretty confident the wide does, but I could be wrong there. That shot that you were just looking at, that was low light in the backyard, near dark, not quite dark. And it was fine. Like low light performance on some of my shots were fine. Nothing like screaming amazing. You know what I mean? Again, low light. I don't know. I feel like that could be better, right? Like I don't know. Those two shots are interesting because one is the rear and this is the front facing, and it shows you the differences in the color balance detection between the two cameras. There's just, I don't know, like, time and time again, as I'm kind of going through and taking pictures and comparing and everything, it's like the images, like I'm really curious to compare between the 8 Pro and the 9 Pro because I haven't actually done the side-by-sides yet for tomorrow's review. I'm doing that after this show, actually. But I'm really interested to compare because, like, I'm kind of guessing without comparing at this point that images are relatively similar between the two. And if so, then what does the Hasselblad partnership actually mean? Which is not to say that the pictures were horrible. I did get some great pictures out of it. But what I'm looking for out of OnePlus is a camera that is almost always good, or as dependable as, say, a Pixel or a Samsung or something like that. And I'm sure that's exactly what OnePlus was hoping for with a partnership with Hasselblad. It's certainly a big part of what they've been making, throwing a lot of attention to is this camera partnership and how amazing the camera is. Not so certain that I think it justifies. Very dark in that room when I took that picture. Like there were no lights on. We were watching a movie on a laptop and I snapped that. So that's all right, but it's still kind of a little fuzzy. So anyways, the Pro has an 8 megapixel 3x telephoto, which was fine. I love having that telephoto. You don't get that on the 9 itself. It also has the macro, which we're looking at a few macro shots. One thing about the macro that's a bummer is that last year's macro actually allows you to get closer than this year's macro. I actually had to step back further on my macro shots with the 9 Pro than what I was able to get on the 8 Pro. And that bugs me because I like a nice solid macro. And I don't know, I had to make some concessions there. But so, yeah, that's
wow.
That's general thoughts about the camera. Like I said, I've got more of a detailed deep dive going on tomorrow's Hands-on Tech, where I'm going to compare the 8 Pro and the 9 Pro against each other, shot by shot, and kind of see, okay, what are we actually getting here? There's also a shutter issue. So, and I don't know, maybe I can actually replicate this because it's really noticeable. So I've got the camera here, right? And I'm going to do some movement with my hand here. I'm going to take a shot. Okay, now look at it. Oh, there it is. Oh, no, it's actually that. And when you're taking shots of things that are moving, that ends up happening a lot. Like I'll have this like little confidence that I got the shot I was looking for. And then I realize, oh, no, that's not it.
It's still processing it.
It is, but what it gives you, the initial like feedback that it gives you is that this is the shot that you got. And then when you go look at it later, you realize it's blurred. Like the example would be, I hold up my phone and I take a shot and yeah, I got it. And I put the phone in my pocket. And then I go back to look at it later and it's like a shot of the sidewalk, or it's a shot of the movement going down in my pocket because I think I got it. I got the feedback that I got it. I got the little Hasselblad click sound that I got it. But then I look at it later and realize the shot was taken after that. Kind of a bummer. So
that sounds like a software folly. By the way, Jason, I looked up the specs of that camera. If you want to
shoot, go for it.
I dropped it. I dropped it in a little whatever chat. But we have a 48 megapixel, which has OIS, and that's the wide angle camera. And then there's the 50 megapixel ultra wide with no OIS.
Right. Wait, what a weird thing to do on your main.
And then the 8 megapixel telephoto has OIS. Which one is the main? Is it the 48 megapixel wide angle?
My understanding is the 50 megapixel is your main. The 48 megapixel
because
is
it's the high res.
Angle. Yeah.
And the thing about that's a bummer, is the 50 megapixel. The 50 megapixel is the ultra wide. So that's probably why you saw distortion in that photo. And that aperture is f/2.2. Okay, so you know where I got these specs. I got these from The Verge. Just to put it out there.
Yeah, and
so I'm still a little like about the wide angle being the supposed main camera is still a little. I'm making hand gestures for the audio listeners.
We can hear you making the hand gestures.
Yeah. All I know is I saw the effects of it, and it's not pretty when that happens. And I just want my camera system on my phone to be dependable. And there were enough things about this camera that aren't quite dependable enough. You know what I mean? Especially when you're talking about a partnership with a camera company. You're basically putting yourself out there and saying, this is going to be amazing. You're going to see a big difference. It's going to solve all these issues that we've had in the past. And I'm not so certain that it does. Outside of that, the display is rocking. Like, it's got a really nice sharp display. I mean, it does me no good to show it off here because it's going through a camera, but it's really nice at 1080p even, which is, I would say, probably the better mode to run it at long term, because when I bumped it up to 1440p, which you can do, 120 hertz, it looks great. But I definitely noticed a hit on my battery performance, even though it has a dynamic 120 hertz display on the 9 Pro. The 9 does not have that dynamic mode, but you do get that on the 9 Pro. But I definitely noticed a hit in the battery. Other quick hits here, 4,500 milliamp hour battery, 65 watt warp charge support. So that's great. I mean, that's crazy fast. I think it's less than half an hour fully charged. And then what is it? The wireless warp charge is ridiculous. It's even more than it was in the 8T, and I can't find it in my notes right now. 50 watts wireless warp charge. You need their special warp charge dock in order to do that. It has a fan built into it. But still, the fact that you can get that in wireless charging is just redonkulous. IP68 certified. Gosh, what else? I mean, Yeah, I memean it's a really great phone, right? Like it's got the Snapdragon 888, it's got 8 to 12 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of storage. So it's got a really great processor on the inside, processor system. So you're not going to run into performance issues necessarily. It's just kind of been a disappointment with the camera, and that's I think my main takeaway with it. Pricing. Which is tough because the camera was such a big part of this announcement. At least on the Pro, right? I mean, like that was, yeah. Well, and even the 9 has the Hasselblad, camera components as well. Although the main is different with the 9 than it is with the 9 Pro. And like I said, I didn't really test the 9, so I can't give you my experience with that. But it is a bummer. 2 years of OS updates, 3 years of security updates. They might need to change that now that it seems like, the norm is shifting up with Google and Samsung. The OnePlus 9 is priced $729 to $829 depending on the RAM and storage configurations. The 9 Pro starts at $969 and goes up to $1,069. So you've got OnePlus cresting over that $1,000 price range and just kind of pushing out even further away from the total value option and just kind of another flagship phone maker. That's what they are. So,
Jason, I just want to apologize. I did not mean to say anything about the I was bringing up all those specs about the camera because the fact that it does, just the whole spec array is not making sense to me just because of the whole Hasselblad branding on this whole thing. It's just... this whole talk that we just had, the rundown that we just had is making me feel like there's no reason for me to leave the OnePlus 8 just in terms of camera performance.
Yeah.
So
that's why I'm getting sort of stuck on it. Don't apologize because it is, I mean, on paper and looking at it, and I even started to doubt myself. I was like, why would the main not have optical image stabilization and the wide does? But I mean, I'm looking at the Verge, I just pulled up one of the reviews, the Verge review right here, and it says, the main camera's lack of optical image stabilization.
That is
the fact. That is the fact.
That's really why it was hard for me to wrap my head around that as just a person who's been like covering this stuff. I'm like, really? And is that supposed to be for, am I supposed to take a night shot? Am I supposed to, do you want me to buy a tripod to go with this phone? Like what does OnePlus want me to do? Like instruct me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So it is, it is what it is. But
it is what it is. Should we move on to the next what it is?
Yes, please.
Okay, well, this one I'm really looking forward to diving into, and I think I might be diving into it pretty soon, which is OnePlus's first wearable. Yes, they announced the OnePlus Watch in tandem with this phone announcement, this double phone announcement they did today. Now, the thing about this watch, the smartwatch is not running on Wear OS, which I was sort of wondering, when I was hearing the rumor mill churning about, like, does that mean that there's finally a Wear OS watch that I might be interested in wearing? Is there finally a Wear OS watch that might take me away from my beloved Samsung Galaxy Active? Who knows? Now, this is a stainless steel watch that is not a tiny watch, which was a note that was made to me very early on, which I appreciate. 1.39, almost 1.4 inch OLED display. The resolution is 454 by 454 to be specific. 1 gig of RAM, 4 gigs of storage. It's about average, and a 402 milliamp battery, something akin to that. It's got GPS, Bluetooth, optical heart rate monitor. It's got IP68 rating, which you need in this day and age. OnePlus says up to 25 hours with the GPS on, to 14 days of battery life, depending on which active features you use. So we're starting at a 25-hour minimum to up to 14 days. So you either get a day and some change, or you can go full 2 weeks. This watch will also use Warp Charge, which I have to say is honestly one of the best things about using a OnePlus phone is that Warp Charge. It promises 20 minutes of charging will give up to a 50% charge. So it's an interesting concept. $160 on sale April 14th. So I do hope to see the smartwatch so that I can really see what this is about. Did we get more details on what it is running? Does anybody know?
No, we really don't know. I mean, outside of, Android, their own, version of Android or skinned version of Android, but we don't really know.
Like Oxygen Wear OS?
I'm guessing something along those lines. Yeah.
I'm very excited for this, quite frankly. This is something new. I'm only excited because it's something new, not necessarily because I think that it'll fill a void in my life, but it's something new. We shall see. Yeah. It's a big watch though. What did they say? It was like 40.
Yeah. What was the size? It did look and sound like this is going to be a chunky watch. I don't know how it's going to fit on your wrist. It looks like a 46 by 10.9 millimeters was what they say as far as the body of the watch is concerned.
Yikes. That's pretty big. My Samsung watch is 42, which is a really nice, comfortable size for me. Yeah. That's not for me, is it? This watch was not made for me.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm not sure that it is necessarily meant for your wrist. All right.
Bummer. Well,
Yeah. Is this going to pull you over, Ron, into the wearable?
I don't think so. Just because I haven't worn a watch since the Gwatch. And I just don't like things on my wrist. I don't know. I don't feel the need for a wearable right now. I mean, it's intriguing. I'd love to check it out. I'd love to give it a test drive, but I don't know how much will stick on my wrist.
I only wear it when I go out with the kid now, or when I go do something active. Otherwise it sits here on my desk and buzzes at me at the alarms that I programmed.
Yep.
All right. This is the part of the show where I eat crow. Flo, your guessing was accurate. Because it just didn't sit right for me. I was like, this is just a weird. I feel like we'd be hearing more about this, and you were right. So the wide angle, the primary rear is the 48 megapixel. And the 48 megapixel is optical image stabilization.
Okay.
The 50 megapixel ultra wide angle does not have OIS. So you were right, and I was wrong.
I'm a little relieved.
Yeah, me too.
Otherwise
me too, because that made no sense whatsoever. Mm-hmm. That seemed like the biggest folly and the biggest belly flop.
But I also don't want. I feel bad for sort of the way. I don't know. Whatever.
No. Don't feel bad about it. No.
So
because it's a detail that I overlooked. And I appreciate that. I just want to head out the emails right now because I know that they'll probably come anyways. And that's okay. AAA at twit.tv. Let us know what you think. But regardless of all of that,
with having
there's a
so many lenses on these phones, though. I mean, that's the thing that I wanted to bring up was like, it's such a confusing messaging for a lot of people. And if we're confused, how do you think other people are going to be?
Yeah. I mean, even beyond that, like from a confusion standpoint, I think the majority of consumers just want to pick up a smartphone, turn on their main camera lens and take a picture. They're going full auto. They're going HDR on. They want it to look good. And at the end of the day, whether this had a OIS or not, there's weirdness going on there that I noticed in many of my pictures. I don't know what that was. I imagined that it was the lack of optical image stabilization, but I'm realizing I got that impression because that's part of the hardware of the 9 and not the 9 Pro.
But that is going to come up in somebody else's photos, which is why it's very important you bring that up, because if I am trying to take a landscape photo, think about maybe the distortion I get from that. Or if I'm taking a group shot with a family, okay, we're finally doing a massive, let's say, family reunion after this COVID thing is, finally vaccinated. I want to take a picture of all those people I haven't seen in a long time, and they're going to be distorted. That's mixed messaging. And apparently OnePlus launched this phone to apparently compete with Samsung. That's the real big narrative around it. So
definitely competing with Samsung on price too.
and Samsung's got a lot of lenses too, but you don't have this problem with those phones. So I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It's funny because I mean we went through, you know, like because when the announcement hit this morning, one of my friends who's super into phones, stuff like that, just wrote back to me. He's like, "Wow, that's a price tag." And I was like, yeah, it is. You know, they're playing the flagship game with this release, and you know, and I'm like, well, you know, we had, you know, a couple months ago we had the Nord, and we had the, you know, kind of the more mid-range side, and what you know, because he's like, oh, I thought OnePlus was supposed to be the affordable one. I'm like, right, but they're trying to play with the big boys, you know, and I get that they're trying to make differentiations or make a reason for the OnePlus to stand out on the shelf or the virtual shelf or whatever it is, as opposed to a Samsung. But you can't make weird decisions like this, you know, that negatively affect the product. Right?
Yeah.
Ron, do you think this is why Carl Pei left?
This might be why Carl Pei left. He was just like, this OIS thing is the last straw. I that's it. I'm done.
I mean, I'm just saying there's a lot of, look, I'm putting a conspiracy out there. I really am, which could get me in a lot of trouble, maybe. I'm just saying. The way the events have stacked up. The way the events have stacked up. I mean, that's an exorbitant price tag for a OnePlus phone. So,
it really is.
Yeah, it is. I mean, outside of that, like, it's, you know, OnePlus does great on their design, and it definitely, I really like the design of the phone and a lot of other things. It's the camera that I'm not entirely sold on.
Sure, if you like black and silver, it's prom all over again, 2002.
Oh yeah, that's right. Here's your tuxedo phones on the table for you. All right, let's take a break from phones and talk about this, our sponsor, Sandisk. And this is all about backing up and transferring files from your phone. Now you could, sometimes, you know, we do this wirelessly, and that's fine. But sometimes you want to do it right onto a drive that you can back up to a drive that, like a tangible drive that you could attach to your keys or immediately pop out of your phone and take it over to your computer and pop it in there. And that's what the Ultra Dual Drive Lux is perfect for. It's a 2-in-1 reversible flash drive, has a USB Type-C and a traditional Type-A connector all in one. Makes it super simple to back up and share your files to any of your devices, including your smartphone. It just plugs right into my smartphone, and my phone recognizes the files and the folders immediately. I don't have to do any special lifting. It's just all right there. I can drag stuff on, pop it out of my phone, throw it in my computer, and everything's there immediately. I've got the right connectors to do it. You can choose from 32 gigs up to 1 terabyte of storage. And it just makes the whole data transfer thing so easy from one device to another. That's really the best part about it. You can set it up so that you can automatically keep a backup copy on the drive. You can use Sandisk's software to set up a backup routine. And that's going to free up some, you know, space on your device, which we all need, that valuable space. That way you can make the most of your phone's capabilities, whatever they happen to be, whatever you're using your phone for. You don't want to run out of that space. And like I said, it's in the past, it's been difficult for me to take a USB drive and plug it into my phone because I always needed some sort of a dongle in order to do it. You know, something like this plugged into the bottom of the phone. And do I even have, you know, this breakout box on me in order to do it? I don't really need that when I've got this USB-C connector on the dual drive, the Ultra Dual Drive Lux. I just pop it right in. Like I can pop it right into the OnePlus 9 Pro right now, and boom, there it is. And then when I've got all the files out on it, just pull it out and then swap this around, and bam, now it goes right into my computer. Super cool design. I love it. Trust me, you need to try this 2-in-1 drive. Sandisk makes awesome products, and you're going to love this. And right now you can get 15% off your first order of featured Sandisk products, but only when you go to sandisk.com/AAA. That's SANDISK.com/AAA. Thank you, Sandisk, for supporting this episode of All About Android and the TWiT Network. All right. And with that, we've got some app news to talk about. Let's do it.
I like to subdue Jason with a let's do it.
Let's do it.
So continuing the ups and downs of Android, Android app bundles, they're getting tweaked. I know you're sitting at home. You're like, what's going on with Android app bundles? I'm going to tell you what, they're getting tweaked. App bundles are actually how the Play Store breaks down apps and games to only the components that are needed for a particular device to download. It actually cuts down the size of the app and optimizes it by device. So they're going to be rolling out a new feature, app install optimization. Once activated, it analyzes what parts of an app are used after the first open and installed. It analyzes many users and then can optimize even deeper to install, open, and run faster for all users as results. So it's almost like a crowdsourced optimization based off like when, I download it, Flo downloads it, Jason downloads it, you download it, and then Google is looking at the Play Store is looking at how you actually use the app and then optimizes the package for the next person to download it, which is actually pretty cool. There's no personally identifiable information shared within that optimization. It's all anonymized, and also no data from the input side of the app is shared. So nothing coming into the app is going into it. It's just more the components that are being used. So even if a user turns this off so they don't share these details, they benefit from those who do, which is nice when that happens. You don't have to give back to the world, but you can benefit from the others giving back to you. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it should mean faster, more accessible app installs, which is a good thing. And I think this is a really clever approach to it. And this is so under the hood how things work. I can't imagine, the mainstream Android audience even knows what the heck we're talking about here. But it's pretty. If you're a developer, it's a pretty cool and interesting kind of feature and a differentiator from some other app stores out there in the world. So.
Yeah, and I think app bundles has been a pretty awesome feature, since it launched a couple of years ago. It is one of those features that's hard to explain to someone who isn't dialed into like the reason why something like this even needs to exist, especially because it's not easy to point at an install and say, oh, see, that was faster because of app bundles. It's just something going on in the background. But I think where this is really beneficial are places in the world that have like slower internet speeds, where that transfer time really like is noticeable, and where shaving off a few pieces of code that are unnecessary actually has tangible benefits from a speed perspective on them installing an app or checking it out and whatever. And I think that's what my guess is. That's what this is really designed towards.
Cool. I think it's clever. So, app bundles. Yay.
Speaking of clever, you know who's really clever? Burke is really clever. In fact, we really have to thank Burke, because Burke tends to send us a lot of links and things to kind of keep us in the know with things. Really appreciate that, Burke. And this time, you can thank Burke for this tip. So XDA posted a sneak peek at an upcoming update to an open source Play Store called Aurora Store. Now, this is actually version 4. And in doing a little quick Googling, Aurora Store seems to be pretty popular just for the fact that you can find a lot of open source apps, and it looks nice. The store itself looks really nice. The app doesn't require G-apps or any Google services to use. The UI is, again, very inspired by the Play Store, but also just very nice and tidy, which you don't always get from open source apps. Let's put in perspective. I'm sorry for anybody. Feelings hurt. Now this Aurora app gives you almost complete access to the apps in the Play Store on devices without Google. That's media services, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about, Huawei and maybe
mobile
a phone
services
you're using, and
mobile services. That's what it is. I was like, is it media services? No, it's Google Mobile Services, GMS.
I know. What did I say? Movie services?
Media services.
Media services.
But this is like the packet of Google's official apps and APIs and stuff.
Yeah. This is interesting. Also allows for spoofing device information and spoofing region for unlocked apps that might be otherwise restricted. I could see this being useful for somebody who maybe was testing apps but I could see how that could be used for fun. This Aurora Store will soon make its way to f-droid or GitLab, and actually, if you Google it, it will take you to the f-droid page. XDA does warn that the app is in direct violation of the Google Terms of Service, so something to really keep in mind there. And we can't tell you things without giving you the caveat, because that would just be irresponsible of us. So definitely don't use. Just as you would not give them your real name if you were to go dine at the restaurant that's inside the Church of Scientology HQ, do not use your personal Google account signing in to the Aurora Store, okay?
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Anonymous account option instead. Sorry?
I said you took the example right out of my mouth.
I feel like it's a really important thing for me to tell people, because I know after they're vaccinated, they're going to want to go to LA and do this thing. I'm telling you, don't give them your real name, because then they will follow you.
It's good advice.
Yeah.
Good advice. Sound advice. I had never heard of the Aurora Store before, but Burke sent this over. I mean, maybe I have, but I've
definitely seen that icon. It definitely, and we've covered f-droid a couple times where I've seen this icon come through. It's a beautiful name.
Well, that's cool that there is a way to gain access, even though it sounds like it's totally not something that Google would approve of.
I kind of want to have some fun with
the Play Store.
I want to go find some of those non-Play Store apps and just really ruin my life.
I mean, so I'm trying to understand. So is this? God, I wish I knew more about this app. Does it reach into the Play Store?
Alternate services too to do that.
But it's able to pull the apps from the Play Store servers.
Like yeah, I think so.
That's my understanding of it. But that's
how long
crazy.
does that go on for?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I'm not so certain that. But although, I was looking around at some comments and stuff, and one person was like, "I've been using this app for years without any issues, just as long as you don't use your email in the app," said a commenter on the XDA article. So it's been around for years, according to that person. I mean, it's on version 4. It's probably a game of whack-a-mole, for the developer's perspective, creating new accounts to act as the anonymous accounts within the app.
Yeah, because that's his developer accounts that he made. So he has had. It does say that he has to keep making those, because you're using his account, basically, is what it sounds like.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
That's fascinating.
Yeah,
I don't see this lasting long.
I mean, but it's lasted for years already, so who the heck knows?
Maybe. Yeah.
But I mean, if you've got a Huawei device, especially right now, in one of the more recent Huawei devices that does not have any of the Google services on it, this could be a great way to get access to that stuff and get you a little closer, given that you don't already have, Google's official Play Store on the device. This could be a decent workaround for that. So, man, got to give it to developers always coming up with unique ways to give everybody access to these things. That is really cool. So apparently you can go to f-droid and GitLab and find a copy of that. They also have it on XDA if you want to use it there. They offer a download in the forums there. That can work as well. Interesting stuff. Thank you, Burke. Burke, do you have this on your phone? Do you use it?
I don't. I did consider it. I literally came across it last night.
Oh, okay. You were like, oh, wait.
But I was blown away. I was like, wow. Because I've definitely thought about alternate, it'd be great to install this maybe on the Oculus Quest, because you can't, if it's possible, because you can't it's locked down and there's a bunch of stuff, and this has potential. Right. I think that might have even been where I came across it, maybe.
That could be, because you had emailed me a couple of weeks ago with something related to how there's kind of like a movement right now among Oculus users who are saying, hey, we want to be able to get Android apps on the Oculus Quest. And it seems to be going nowhere, but at its core, the Quest is an Android device. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it is. So yeah, maybe this would work. Throwing that on there, I'd be curious to see. But then once you have the app on Are you able to get the app running?
Yeah,
well, I don't know.
It might be one step out of many, if at all.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. One step closer, but not quite the solution, the official solution. Interesting. So that's Aurora Store. Thank you, Burke. All right. We would not leave you out of this show. Up next, we've got a few of your emails.
Yes.
And if you have ever sent us an email, you already know this, but if you haven't, or maybe it's been a long time, you need a refresher. It's really complicated. It's AAA@twit.tv. That's the email address. Send us an email there, and we may read it on the show. Al Lewis sent us an email to AAA@twit.tv, and he said, I've had some recent disappointing experiences with Google hardware. My Pixel 3 XL, Pixel 4 XL, and Pixel Slate tablet have all had swelling batteries that have dislodged the screen. I am not hard on the phones. They never get dropped, never exposed to excessive heat. Use only the Google chargers and Pixel stands Google designed for these products, placed in cases sold by the Google Store for these devices. Man, you take really good care of your phones. And never CPU taxed, i.e. intense gaming. Although that should be a use case that you can do, by the way. I find it disappointing to have such experiences with premium devices after about 18 months to 2 years. I would too. I bought the devices unlocked from the Google Store. I contacted Google support in all three cases. The Pixel 3 XL and 4 XL phones were replaced with refurbished units, even though they were past the 1-year warranty period. In the case of the Google Slate, they sent me to their authorized service company, uBreak-iFix. I've heard of them doing that a lot. They told me the Slate was unrepairable, but they could sell me a refurbished unit if I agreed to surrender the current device to Google for technical evaluation. In other words, they want to take it apart and know what's happening. I've checked with several other repair shops. Each told me parts are not available and the Slate products are unrepairable. I am writing you to encourage bringing the hardware issues to the attention of your viewers so they can make better buying decisions. I've never had a Pixel device do this, but I've definitely seen the articles. I've definitely heard of the battery swelling. And I have had a phone that did this. God, what phone was it? At this point, I can't even remember which device it was.
Was it the Nexus 6P?
It could have been the Nexus 6P because I don't have that anymore.
Back then. That's why I'm sort of thinking about it. And that was Huawei.
Oh. Yeah, that was Huawei.
It happened to my husband too. His phone just sort of like popped one day, and it was just like perpetually popped. We still have it.
Yeah, I don't think that I have the 6P anymore. So it probably was that. What about you, Ron?
I've never. Yeah, no, I haven't. I've never experienced this myself. I've heard other people having it though. Just generally, I lived across the street from a uBreak-iFix, and I think that's a horrible business name. Anyway,
I agree.
Put that out there.
I agree too. I've always thought that name.
I like it.
uBreak-iFix.
Such chaos.
Anyways, Al, I thought that was a good cautionary tale. Thank you for sending that in. I did have to cut that down a little bit, so I'm sorry not all of your words were read, but we got to the gist of it. And I mean, make better buying decisions. I guess when you buy a Pixel device, when you buy the Pixel, 3 XL for the very first time, you don't know that you're making a bad buying decision. You think you're making a good buying decision. And there are a lot of people that own the 3 XL that have a 3 XL that still works. So they made a good buying decision. Sometimes it's the luck of the draw, although it seems like you're having really bad luck. So I'm sorry about that, Al. Let's see here. Flo, are you up next? I can't find it.
I'm up next. So this email comes from Len, and it's a very helpful recommendation. So tune in. I wanted to make a recommendation regarding Phil's email question on episode 516 for audiobooks. I recommend buying a Kindle edition of a book and adding audible narration. This allows you to switch back and forth between reading and listening to your book. Phil said his situation may be temporary and he prefers to read a book. This allows him to do both. Len.
That's nice.
Thank you, Len, for reminding us that is a thing that you can do. That is a really great suggestion. And it will probably save Phil some money down the line.
Yeah. Nice suggestions. We actually got quite a few people who wrote in with suggestions. Len, yours was one of them. And then Ron, you have the other one, but you have the honors.
I do have the very important honors of the email of the week. This would be an up. The ups of Android is the email of the week. So our good friend Robin writes in and says, in response to your discussion of audiobook services for the phone, you neglected to mention two options. Both of these options are for someone who is either permanently or long-term disabled and cannot hold or read a book. They may require an application, and one of them requires a notice from a medical professional. The first is provided by the National Library Service of the Blind in the U.S. They produce a program called Bard. This contains a free downloadable app which can be played on Android, Apple, and Amazon devices. The service also allows for downloads from a website to a special player or USB drive to be played on a player which is provided by the service. All of this is free, and they have been providing talking books for many, many years. The second option is called Learning Alley. I'm not as familiar with this, but I'm aware they also provide free books for the visually impaired and otherwise reading impaired. I believe many of these books are produced by a speech synthesizer. This service requires an application with some kind of medical proof of disability. And thanks, Robin. Yeah, I'd never heard of Bard or Learning Alley, and so it's great to be aware of these services, and also the fact that that they're free, and that there's these organizations that are dedicated to enabling those who are impaired to be able to read and enjoy books like everyone else. So that's kind of awesome. They're both in the Google Play Store. You can go find them, both Bard and Learning Alley. And if this is something that you could benefit from, I'd recommend you go look into it and get hooked up to it. So very cool. I had no idea about that. So thank you, Robin. For that, you are the email of the week.
The email of the week. There you go. Yeah, so I just looked it up. Bard Mobile, which I'd never heard of that before. And then I don't know if it's Learning Alley or Learning Ally, but I found a Learning Ally audiobooks. I think it's probably the same thing, so maybe it was a misspelling.
I think it's Ally. It's A.
Ally.
A11.
There it is.
Yeah.
But
Ally
would be an E. There's an E. It would be an E in there.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So check those out. Thank you, Robin. Great suggestions. And that has been the ups and downs of Android. I feel like this episode was really true to its title this time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll keep it with that, the ups and downs of Android. And we have reached the end of this episode of All About Android. And thanks, as always, to everyone for watching, for listening, for joining us as we navigate the ups and downs of Android. Flo, what do you want to talk about? What's going on for you?
I've got some things going on. You can go to florenceion.com, firstly, which is my website. That's where you can find all the information that I've centralized for you there on the internet. You can find me on social media at OhThatFlo. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. I'm even on TikTok. What else? I am on the Relay FM network. I also do a podcast with Andy and Natko called Material, where we go just a little bit deeper into the world of Google and its goings on. And actually, I just want to leave everybody real quick. If you're interested, we're doing a book club, but it's a podcast club. So we're listening to a podcast. Right now, we're listening to Recode's Land of the Giants because they're covering Google. So if anybody's interested in that, head over to relay.fm and we'll tell you more about it this week on the podcast. So I just want to give a little tease there.
Awesome. Love it. Check that out, everyone. All right. And Ron, what about you?
Yeah, you can just head over to Instagram or to Twitter and follow me at RonXO and go check out Scorebit. It's in the Google Play Store. It's an app to keep track of your pinball scores. And we also sell hardware that goes inside pinball machines to automatically connect them to the internet. So you can find all that out at scorebit.io. And just working hard and just grinding away. Every day.
Working and grinding, working. Yep. I feel you. You know who else is working and grinding? That's Victor and Burke, both working and grinding behind the scenes to make this show happen. And we appreciate all that you do. So thank you, Burke. Thank you, Victor, for doing all that you do and getting this show into people's ears and eyes. As for me, I'm doing that photo kind of comparison for Hands on Tech, which will go live likely tomorrow late afternoon. twit.tv/HOT for Hands on Tech, or if you're subscribed, you'll get it automatically. But yeah, I'm going to compare the OnePlus 8 Pro to the OnePlus 9 Pro shot by shot and kind of see like what kind of upgrade are we talking about here. Hopefully that's beneficial and useful. twit.tv/store if you want to find some all about Android swag, or really swag for any of our shows here on the TWiT network. You can find shirts, masks, hoodies, all sorts of cool stuff for you to wear and show everyone about your fascination with technology. That's what it's all about. Don't forget, by the way, to wear a mask and save lives. Keep it up. Man, it's feeling like the tide is changing here, but we got to stay committed to this stuff. So keep it up, and thank you for doing that. And that is it for this week. We publish this show every Tuesday at twit.tv/AAA. So go there, subscribe. You won't miss a single episode. It comes late in the Tuesday evening after Victor's done and publishing it there. But that's it for this episode. We'll see you next week on another episode of All About Android. Bye, everybody.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am Ant Pruitt, and I want to tell you about my show, Hands on Photography, here on TWiT TV. Each and every week, Thursday that is, I like to sit down and share with you the best tips and tricks that are going to help make you a better photographer. And it's not always about Photoshop. It's not always about just having the biggest and baddest and bestest camera. It can be the simplest of things, like leave your eye open when you're looking through the viewfinder. All of these simple tips can really help step your photography game up. So subscribe to the show today. That's twit.tv/hop. And I look forward to talking to you soon.